For the next step, we're going to utilize an image that exists elsewhere on the web, and we're going to use the HTML image tag in a post, and that image tag then will act as a locator for the blog to go out and find the image, and you can drop it directly onto into your post rather. So the first thing to do is to go to Posts, and we'll add another new post. This time I'm going to name this one Image Embed. And as you saw previously in this tutorial, I was toggling between the Visual tab and the HTML tab. Now the Visual is the what you see is what you get editor, and it gives you sort of a baseline of what the content is going to look like once you publish the post. HTML allows you to add HTML coding, whether this is an embed code for an image or a link or a video. If you get any piece of HTML from another source, you can bring it into HTML view and do a paste right into this area. So before I publish the post, I'm going to go out and get that code. The first place to look is on our WebCT course site. Look at the overview for the June the 16th, and as you scroll down, I have the actual location of this image, which is on our course site, and I created a directory called archive. The name of the file that we're looking at is graphictypes.png. So let's take a look at that real quick. I'm going to copy this, open it in a new tab when I paste that in there. And what this image is a version of Mayer and Clark's graphic types, the decorative, representational, organizational, etc. This image is roughly 500 pixels wide by 700 pixels tall, and we're going to take this image, which is a PNG of a figure from their article, and we're going to embed that in the post. Now if I go back to my WebCT course page, I see the embed code right here, and we'll utilize that momentarily. We'll discuss that a little bit more. But first, let's actually take a physical look at where the graphic lives on the server so that we can understand how the embed code works. When I look at the FTP client, and remember you have to add the host username and password, which are in our first week's class overviews in WebCT. You can find those credentials. I did create a folder or a directory called archive, and in that archive directory, that's where that PNG lives. So once again, that's how we get this URL, which is the archive directory and then the PNG name. And you do need to have this full URL for an image embed code. Now, any image on the web has a URL, and as long as you have the location of that image, this technique will work. So let's take a look now. We have this full embed code, which starts with a less than sign and ends with a greater than sign, and I will highlight this here. Oops. You will need to have this whole piece for your embed code. Now it starts out and it denotes that this is an image that we're embedding. src equals says this is where the source is, and between the quotes here and the end quotes here, we put the full URL, including http/ of our image. And so the location there, that's the critical piece. Then moving on, we have alt equals, and then between quotes, I typed in the word Clark and Mayer's image types. Now, once again, this is what we call the alt tag, and this is what screen readers read for visually impaired folks, and other purposes as well, search engine optimization, etc. Now, one piece for the assignment is that you include the width and the height here, and what we're doing is we're going to shrink our embed code from the original size. And let me take a look. The original size is, as I said, 573 by 780 pixels. We want to shrink it down to 441 by 600. And so by saying the width and the height is equal to this, we're shrinking it down about 100 pixels or so. And that maintains its ratio, the height versus width ratio. And it shrinks it down. So when you create an image embed code, you for certain need to add the source. Adding the alt tag, the width tag, and the height tag are optional. Adding the alt tag is good practice, especially when we're talking about the ADA requirements of making web pages accessible to Americans with disabilities. The width versus height, you use this when you want to have the image be a different size than its original size. So once again, we constrain the width and height down from its original size, and that's so that it fits in our post better. What I'm going to do is copy this image source, this image embed code, and now I'm going to jump back over into my blog. Once again, we're in the HTML view. And now all I have to do is paste this code into my post, and now I can publish it. Great. So I'm going to click on my blog link here and take a look at the blog. Now notice I have my post with image embed, and there's the image that we inserted using an embed code with a image address that we found that was somewhere else on the web. It's not within our blog system software, and we used HTML to embed this image. And when we come down to look at this image that we actually uploaded through WordPress, this is handled via the WordPress software and is within the directories of WordPress itself. So two alternate ways to embed images. This way to actually upload it directly into your blog is a good method if you are only going to use this image in your blog and you actually own the image. This method here of embedding an image via an HTML embed code is good practice if others are going to be using your image and embedding it on their sites. That way you can give them a clean URL that is from a directory on your server. And this is also a good technique to use if you don't have the image itself but it lives on somebody else's server. You can use the embed tag from their server and drop it onto your web page. Now, a caveat there, if they go in and delete that image at a later date, the image will be deleted on your web page as well. So when you're using someone else's images, and that's not taking copyright into account, you should always make sure that the images that you use, you either have permission or are an alternative copyright law like Creative Commons. You can embed that image directly into your post.